live on YouTube, you can go ahead, sir.
Right. Okay.
Just make me a co-host and stay as a host. Just make me a co-host, please.
Right. Okay. Allow that. Got it. Right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. We've started live streaming the program. Let's come with Kassim. Let's come and talk with Kassim Kayira. It's a weekly program, entertaining for those who have been. For
Sorry
those
to
who...
interrupt you. He's Uma connected, so you should make Uma connected, not Radio Dabi co-host.
Where is that?
Yeah, Uma connected.
Uma connected.
Should...
Yep.
Well done. No, yeah. You've given your host right away. You...
Technical. Right. Talk me through it.
You are supposed to make him a co-host and you stay the host. Osama, your connection is very bad.
Yeah, but I think the point was
let me sort it out. Let me
okay.
Go ahead, Jada. Go ahead.
Sorry about this. These are teething problems.
Okay. No problem. I think it was the issue was about starting the live stream. Yeah. So it's fine now, Jaden. You can be where you are at. The issue was just about launching the live stream. And we are streaming live now.
We are streaming live. Yes, sorry about that, brothers and sisters. Teething problems with technology as it is. Some of us are technology dinosaurs, but we are finally here live streaming on our weekly program. Come, let's talk with Kassim Kayira. The topic today is investment or business back home. And we've got a challenge to understand what investment is and what business is and where do we do it, how do we do it. And for those who have done it, whatever it is, whether it is farming, whether it is going for rentals, or it's truck driving, transportation, whether it's just normal business retail, it's the investment that you have chosen. It's the investment which is you think will pay dividends to you, but is it to yourself that you're making that investment, or who are investing it for? Those are the questions that we've got to answer in this talk, and we've got people who have got experience, people who are willing to share their knowledge, their experience, and it's all a question of who is doing, not a question of who is doing it best, but how can we learn from each other? What mistakes have people made, and how can we make ourselves better? Not to bring them down, but to make whatever investment, because we've come to the diaspora not to live a life of luxury. We are investing our time, we're investing our knowledge, we're investing everything. We are sacrificing a lot of things so that we can invest for ourselves, we can invest for our children, investing for the community back home, because believe you me, one person in the diaspora has got what I would call a charity, or a number of people relying on them, whether it's paying a hospital bill for an uncle, or contributing towards a wedding, or just buying a mattress for a child who's making it to their first year at university or S1. That is all on the back of the people in the diaspora, because the view is that we are here and we are making it, and we are duty bound to help the people back home. But what do we do in terms of putting something aside for ourselves, for our children? In the West, there is what they call pensions and pension schemes. People rely on pension schemes, and they put money aside for their old age. Their old age in the West is defined by the state, and that is from 65 years or 67 for men. And once you've put that little pot aside, when you attain that age, then you can retire and start getting little by little, depending on what your scheme is. You can get a full lump sum, or you can get the monthly payments to subsist you as you continue to your last legs. But for us, our understanding is quite different. We want to invest in what we call running businesses. I've mentioned agriculture. I've mentioned transporting, investment in trucks, investment in livestock, investment in fishing. But most times we do those investments while we are still holed up in the West, because we do it by remote control. And thankfully, we've got the smartphones, we've got the laptops that we can communicate with whoever we've given to manage our projects back home. But sometimes the eyes or the decisions that you make from your bedroom while you're seated in London or in New York or Chicago to the herdsman who is milking your cows in Kiriandongo or in Lira or in Soroti, wherever they are, or who is changing tires on the way from Kasese, the decision that you make while you're seated in your bedroom is not the kind of decision that he would have made while he's on the ground. It's going to be different, because your perception is going to be the perception of what you can perceive while you're here in the West. In the West, say changing the tire, for example, you call the AA. But for that driver that you have employed to look after your truck, and he's got a puncture on the way from Kasese, it's in the middle of the night, how is he going to manage that by making that phone call to you? And do you trust that manager to make the right decision for your investment? Because this is hard-earned money. This is money that when we first came to UK, we used to call it money that you make while sleeping in your shoes, because it's a 24 hours economy, and you are working day in and day night to make that little money, to save, to feed yourself, and to make that investment. So do you trust that manager to make that investment for you? So I'm going to come to you, Sheikh Kassim Kayira, if you can unmute yourself and give us a flavor of the experience that you've gone through. I know you've talked a lot about ranching, about rabbit keeping, and all kinds of businesses. Give us a flavor of how you came to that decision. I know you worked for the BBC, which was like a prestigious job, but you left all that. You left the suits and the ties, you left the chauffeur-driven cars, and decided to go and shovel cow dung and tie ropes around goats and all that. So give us some flavor of that.
No, thank you very much, Brother Jaden. And I'll ask Isma kindly to find us one of the best clips that he can find, probably, just to try to illustrate what I've been going through in the last week as I came to the farm. But in 2015, after nearly 17 years at the BBC, I decided to hang my boots in full-time journalism. And that was really probably the last that I was going to be having of the 9-to-5 jobs, especially considering there's a kind of comfort that we tend to find in jobs, the 9-to-5 job. You just go in, before you know it, it's 5 o'clock, you come back home, you are counting on the next day. And places like the BBC has a way that it actually cushions you from the realities that are out. I think I've learned a lot more since I left the BBC than I knew when I was in the BBC. And yet, during that time is when we were informing the world. But I've realized there was a whole real world that was out here that I'd come to face up to when I decided to, hang up my boots and sort of leave the BBC and say that I was going to get involved in farming. But the reason was I looked at some of the people, the old guards who had lived in the BBC. There was one person that we actually left the BBC around the same time. This person had been in the BBC for the last 40 years. I mean, I was talking about 10 plus years and I was feeling like I had stayed long. This person had been at the BBC for 40 years, since the 70s. And this person got to leave the BBC, very, sweet package, about 350,000 pounds in cash as a sort of the leaving package. The handshake that he was given, and then of course now with the government pension that was coming to follow up on that. This person leaves the BBC, and other than paying off whatever was left of his mortgage, they didn't know where to start from. Landed in Uganda, it was like very alien. Went to Tanzania because they had background there in Zanzibar. Things simply couldn't work, and it has been for many. And then with the white guys, people like Jeremy Clarkson, the way he left the BBC, well, unceremoniously because of what happened to Top Gear as a top presenter, he's ended up in farming. But the way he's had like a lot of support from manufacturers and so on makes his business look so easy, as if that's what farming is, although he's of course now living the difficult world on the farm. So I considered all of these things and how it was difficult. Most of us went to school in the belief that once you go to school, you would have avoided, going down the route of the hoe and being on the farm and getting dirty. Yeah. But then suddenly you realize this was the area that was going to be feeding the world. This is where you can just sit. And we have different passions. So I had a passion, like for animals, sitting down, and the Quranic verse, I think for me, sort of really re-emphasized this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks in this particular verse about the happiness that comes to the minds of the farmers, the farm owners, as the cows, as the animals leave in the morning to go and graze, and then seeing them come back in the evening. This, to me, and actually it rings even more the bell, because today I ended up having our herdsman being unwell. He went to hospital for his tooth to be removed, and I did the herding because we didn't have anybody to stand in. I ended up in the fields, with nothing covering my head because I left my straw hat in the car. And the kind of experience I went through was sort of speaking volumes to me, and it was painful, but it was sweet pain. And then when I video called my wife, she said, "You are living the dream." And I'm just bringing this just to sort of say, to bring in that particular line that you're living the dream, because as we were talking, I started, somehow there was a very nice butterfly, and I just took the camera and just said, "Look at this beautiful butterfly." Yeah. And she said, "You've become so white now, you're sort of living the dream, to the point that you're even now starting to see butterflies and seeing birds, and you are in bird watching." But there was passion, but there was also the business spirit. So I did a lot of research. I think the last 6 months in the BBC were really devoted to a lot of research online. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless his soul. I had a friend, a very big friend, Idi Saif. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him. He passed away about a year. It's going to 2 years now since he died. But he's the person, when I was born, my dad was not home. He was our neighbor, and he carried me from hospital. But then we ended up working together in the BBC so many years later. But he had carried me from Barara Hospital, taking me back home, because my dad was not there and my mom was in hospital by herself. Yeah. So this person who had carried me from hospital, we ended up working together in the BBC. And then we left on the same day. So actually, as I was presenting my last show in the BBC, he was my guest, and we were saying goodbye to our listeners and viewers across the world. We came to Uganda. He went down to Kamwenge, and I came this side of Kiriandongo, and the kind of conversations and dreams that we were having. But I had carried out a lot of research, a lot of theory research, because once you get on the ground, then reality starts setting in. You have family to consider. You have, I could not stay in Uganda for that long. Family starts calling, and then the pressures are on. Are you involving yourself and devoting yourself to business, sacrificing family back home? Would it be worth the while when you make the money, but then you go back and the wife is sort of, divorcing you, and family falling apart, and children sort of failing to find a father figure in that. There are all these considerations about absentee business making. You are either deciding to stick with the family and leave the business suffering, or you stick with the business and then the family suffers. There are sort of those difficult decisions that you have to make.
Just before you get to that point, what I'm interested in is that spark of leaving the comfort of a 9-to-5 with an assured wage at the end of the week or at the end of the month to that unknown where you haven't put the first hoe in the ground or you haven't bought the first animal. What was the spark in between there? What made you make that leap of faith?
I built up my name with the BBC, and I think without really fear of contradiction, many people would be dreaming. That's a journalist's dream place. I mean, once you get to the BBC, where else would you want to be? You cannot compare the BBC with CNN, for example, Voice of America. BBC is a class apart. I mean, whatever anyone would want to say, there is that integrity, there is that respectability, there is that professionalism that you build. And once you get to that point, I mean, I wasn't expecting to become the Director General of the BBC. And once I've got the skills and traveled the world, out of Africa's 54 countries, I've been to 36. In Europe, I've been to 15. And then add America and Canada, and then in Latin America, Mexico and Brazil. And that to me sort of felt like I'd touched the climax in terms of what I was thinking about doing. But then I had a new passion, a passion that I was seeing taking me into the pension. Because once you leave the 9-to-5, you get to an age where even the BBC would be sort of saying, there is young blood coming in, it's time for you to leave that chair. And in farming, nobody would tell you that, because the longer you stick in, the more experience you're building up. So there was passion on one hand, but also determination. And there was a madness of sorts, because considering the fact that I was coming to dip myself into a farming business that I only had 2 acres. 2 acres is what I left the BBC with. Came to Uganda. I was lucky because as I was leaving the BBC coming to Uganda, Azam TV, which was a Tanzanian brand, heard that I was leaving the BBC and I was coming to Uganda. And they sort of started poaching me. And the idea was, you are coming, we shall not get in the way of what you're trying to do, but come and, put your foot in Uganda and help us as a new company trying to break into the Great Lakes region, become who we can become. And the terms were such that I was receiving a salary that was bigger than what I was receiving in the BBC, but I was back home in Uganda. And you can imagine what that does. So that threw me into a madness of sorts. I got to Uganda, I started buying land left, right, and center. I mean, by the time I hit 150 acres of land, I was feeling like now we can start working. So it was a madness, but which was backed with research. I could see the small things that could build into bigger things. And I started with goats and rabbits, and I could see the potential in them. But then, of course, now midway, family starts calling, and you start worrying about children, sort of losing track, especially the boys as they become adolescent. And then the reality sets in that I really had to put one foot down and make sure, I had to leave. So I was doing 3 months in Uganda and 1 month in UK. I had to change that, do 3 months in UK, do 1 month in Uganda. And I'm actually now living in the 1 month now because I've done my 3 months in UK.
I was just going to ask you that, because part of our topic is the remote handling of the businesses. And I see you in my backyard here in Newcastle. From time to time, we're together, and then at the same time, you've got that big investment in Uganda. Now, who makes those decisions? Like I expressed at the beginning, there are those decisions that have got to be made on the spot, while there are those long-term strategic decisions which you can make when you are away from the farm. So, who was making those decisions, and how did you get those people to make those decisions?
I think, well, it starts with if you are a couple, husband and wife, it is very, very important that you get the support of your spouse. If you are a man, you need your wife's support. If you are a woman, you need your husband's support. Without that, you're going actually to work 3 times, 4 times harder My wife was not, or is not, a person who was so keen on farming. But I pushed, and she saw how much I was investing myself into the farming. And guess what? I mean, this hut that I'm sitting in at this moment in time, it's a hut that she's come and built within 2 weeks. Well, it was built, but coming to finish it and giving it the finesse, the final touch that it is now.
Yeah.
She came in, and what she did now has sort of catapulted what I was supposed to do. But the moment she realized, because I would come and I would say, I get in this place, there is no noise. I've built the house in the middle of a huge chunk of land. It's like 30 acres across, like which side, like getting to whatever side of the farm. And the home is so quiet that I come into the farm, unless someone has seen my vehicle getting into the farm, people wouldn't know that I'm even in the farm. Yeah. And this reality is then sometimes it's very interesting. The farm manager probably has connections or farm workers bringing young girls or whatever. These girls are not aware that you are there. You are just roaming around, and then someone is used to their particular schedules, and you catch them off guard.
Yeah.
So the support of a spouse is the moment she came here, and I was still back in UK, and she came on the farm, spent 2 nights on the farm, and she said, now I understand what you felt. I drive across the farm and I feel so taken. Right now, she's actually feeling so, like she's so jealous of my being on the farm at the moment, wish that she would be here. So the moment you get a spouse's support, it opens up doors for you to start doing stuff, because women have a particular touch on things. If they bring in, the way they finesse stuff would be different. Yeah. So I'll bring in the hard decisions, but then once the decisions have been made, which are made jointly, then the person that gets them moving is really the wife, and she's done that. On the remote aspect now, technology, I think, is playing a very big role, which is right now you can set cameras on your farm in strategic locations, sometimes without even the knowledge of the workers. Best actually, if that is the case, you just bring your guy who's coming to install, get the guys busy elsewhere. Probably they might think it's a light because you place it around the light and they think it's just one of the lights. Or they are now, like cameras that I brought this time are cameras that are like bulbs. So you plug them actually into a bulb socket. So someone thinks it's a bulb, but it's a camera. And it's 355 degrees. So you can actually see on the farm. All this goes into your mobile phone anytime. They actually create alerts. They can have sounds. They can have alarms that, for example, in an area where someone is trying to cross and you can see them because you receive a ping on your phone and that alerts you and you can take action. Yeah. This really makes now like farming or any other business much, much more doable, and you can actually invest a lot of the time. So technology, I think, is really, really critical, comes in to do that. Workers, when you get the right workers, it's taken me a long time. I mean, I started in 2015, 2016, beginning the shape of what the farm, would be like. And the idea was in Bombo, but we were sitting on small land. We ended up with about 15 acres. But 15 acres is nothing when you have a big dream. Yeah. So the idea then comes in and you have to move away. You have to move away from the comfort of Bombo, which is just 20 miles from the capital. Move down 136 miles just to make sure you get the land cheaper, you get the land bigger, land that you can actually explore and do stuff with. Land that has never been, like farmed on. It's been just grazing land. You bring in a new concept, bring the tractors, clear up the land, and you start seeing the dream happening. So getting workers right, they will create all the beautiful impressions the moment you board your plane, and they always know you're coming on time. You have 2 weeks, and then, and there will be timing. They just work on those 2 weeks. Make sure they delay stuff for the 2 weeks. When you leave, they just know you are leaving, and then they start to eat whatever they are doing. Yes, I don't want to maybe eat up very many people's
just
time.
One final question before you leave, and that's been quite insightful. You've got a wife. You've talked very glowingly about her. You've got children. I've met your children. You've got that investment. But who is that investment for? Is it for you and the wife, and is it for your children? And if we look at the experience of the Indians, the Indian will have a shop, and when the child comes back from school, he puts him there to sort the beans or whatever they're mechanizing, so that the child can get an insight into the business and learn the business. Do you involve your children into that business? Because our time is limited, and that investment, as far as I can see, is for the children, for their long-term future once we are gone. Do you involve your children in that business?
Oh yes, we've tried, and once every year, despite how expensive it is, we try to bring in the children to be part of the story. Reason being, if they are not interested in this, you will die and they'll just come and sell. However, the question that you raised, who is it for? I think it's a question that has continued to change over time. It just keeps changing. It has not been, like stand there. When I started off on this, the idea was, this was mine. This was my dream. I was pursuing it for me. And then I started, inducing my wife into it, and then she becomes part of the dream. But as we do it for us, just like many things that we do, we think about the children that they can take it on. And it's actually even taken, make no mistake, I'm not trying to say we've achieved it. It's work in progress. It's still continuing to be work in progress. I paid the land over time. It's not like I bought it at once.
Yeah.
We continue to buy and increase the land. And as you increase, you start seeing new opportunities coming in. The farm itself has taken a different, trajectory. The idea initially was just produce cows, produce goats every Eid. For me, we sell goats like once a year, which is Eid. And almost 95 or 99% of my clients are people in the diaspora, people probably on this program at this moment, who buy the goats and then we drop them, we deliver them to their families. That has been a unique aspect of our selling point, which is we get the goats from the farm and we deliver all the cows from the farm and we deliver them onto people's doorsteps. That was unique. As time went by, we sort of got the children involved. They start bringing in their new ideas. It is farming. It is turning now into an agro-tourism. Allah allowing, later this year, we are hoping to start hosting families from the diaspora coming in to spend time on the farm to just get a farm experience. And inshallah, we are sort of now fast tracking on that. And that's where now the issue of like family unity comes in, because my wife now has been sort of championing that. And I know while I concentrate on what the animals should be on the farm, the constructions of whatever cottages, blah, blah, how the people will be received, the reception areas and all of that is now taken on by her. And that takes a bit of the burden off you, because the other person is sort of planning on that. So the dream now narrows down. What if the children are not interested in this? It goes back to us. We are living that dream now. Let us enjoy it. What the children decide to do with it is their business. For now, it comes back to us. So I'm not thinking about the children right now. It's about me. It's about my wife. Let's have the best of it. Once we are gone, the children will take over. Let them know what to do. They can decide on which way they take it. But for now, we are enjoying this. This life is now for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sheikh Kassim Kayira, for that insightful.
I'd ask Isma if you didn't mind just to play as a clip if it's ready. Just one of the clips, just on the farm, just to show if it is okay with you then.
Yeah, that's fine. Isma, if you're ready, can you set it on? But while we're waiting for that, welcome once again to our discussion. Let's talk with Kassim Kayira. I'm standing in for Kassim as the apprenticeship or the shadow, but my name is Jaden. Isma, you ready?
Maybe as he gets in ready, there was something I didn't mention. The trauma that we go through. I don't know how many times I've cried, Jaden. I don't know how many times I've cried. During COVID, excuse me, I was thinking I'd come off, so I'd started chewing on something. My apologies. During COVID, I was locked out in the UK, couldn't come on the farm. The workers knew I couldn't come. They brought a pickup on the farm, loaded 49 Boer goats, some of the best that we had on the farm, loaded them and went and sold them. and then disappeared from the farm, leaving the other few animals locked up without food. Almost lost the entire stock and had to start all over. But alhamdulillah, the ones that remained, almost all of them were pregnant, and with the big care, we managed to get a team together. We started looking after these animals, and then they put us back into the market. Goats, for example, and sheep multiply very quickly in comparison to, say, cows, and therefore we're able to do that. But there are all those tears, there are those moments you just look and you think, should I give up? You cry, you know, you just sit down and you feel like this is an entire loss. How much money have I thrown into this? Agriculture is not really for the faint-hearted. You come in, you can see the pain. There are all those beautiful moments, but there are so many painful moments where you're just beginning to question yourself. Did I make the right decision? Should I continue? But there's always that glimmer of hope that even with the much suffering, that hope is what keeps you going. Just say, you see that one light and it just opens up that hope and keeps you going. And well, when the smiles come, they are beautiful smiles. Like tomorrow, I said, inshallah, we shall be roasting a little bit of a goat and sheep.
Don't send us the pictures. Don't send us the pictures again.
I'll make sure to, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Isma, if you are ready, can you play us that clip so that we can see the suffering that Sheikh Kassim is going through, or should we call it the enjoyment, because he's living the dream. It's an investment that has moved him from what everybody would call a dream job, and he's gone back to Uganda and is doing that business for himself and his wife, and they're living the dream. But the question is, how do you make that choice of investment if you're not ready to go through that pain? People have talked of cryptocurrency, for example. Others have talked about investing in rentals or restaurants, or anything that you can think of that would remove you from the pain of living in the wild, as Sheikh Kassim has described, and as we will see in the clip that is going to come. What has your experience been? Share it with ourselves so that we can learn, so that we can be motivated to invest, because the life in the West is quite deceptive. It's the life that offers you everything, but in a short time. And before you know it, you don't have that investment. You don't have the time. You don't have the energy that you have ably invested. I'm not saying it's the wrong place to be. It's the right place to be, so that you can start building up a little at a time. But at the end of it, where do you put your hard-earned cash? The floor is open. And can we have that clip, Isma, if you're ready? Isma, are you ready with the clip? Okay, while we're waiting for Isma, I'm going to pick names at random and ask you to share your experience, whether it's your experience or the experience of a friend or experience of a neighbor that you've seen, the rewards that they've got.
Isma is saying he can't play the video because he's not been made co-host. So there's a 75W radio that has not been made co-host. Right. I think it's the one that says studio. That's where the clips are. It needs to be made a co-host for it to be able to play. Sorry for the interruption.
That's fine.
Just called me. I think he was trying to communicate to the studio and it wasn't getting there.
Okay.
So this one of the 75W radio studio. That's the one that needs to be made co-host for it to play.
Okay.
I have made it. I've made it.
Okay, so we will go ahead, please. Sorry for the interruption, Mr. Judge.
No, that's fine.
So you must be ready to get dirty, and that's got.
I think
cool
that's not a clean job. That's like a a
And the
laborer's
workers need to
job.
be sure to see you and know that you are able to work alongside them. You are not the boss that just sits in the car probably and just watches or orders.
And takes pictures.
The more you get engrossed into the work, the more they appreciate. They will sort of see that you can do, and that comes in quite handy. It costs a lot.
And it also shows the commitment that you've got in your investment, because it's not like you've pumped in money and you are leaving it into the hands of somebody to develop it for you. You've got that.
I've been asking them to do this for the last 1 year and they couldn't. You see, when I got there, we dug that compost field, and that pit now is really hosting nearly 5 tons of manure that we are going to be spreading into the garden. This is just priceless. It's just wealth that was sitting there, manure or fertilizer that you would have wanted to buy from outside. Yet it was it was just lying under the goat pen, and they were not bothered. They would clean inside,
Yes.
Everything goes down. Ammonia builds up and brings illness to the goats, and because they are just breathing all that, and you just need to be hands-on. You need to get on the ground and just sort of be able to take matters in your own hands.
Okay.
This has built up. I mean, much of the goat food that we are removing now has been here at least for the last 2 years. If you just pick the stench, the smell that is coming out of them, and that's where the goats are, there is no way this kind of ammonia that comes from that wouldn't cause the animals to get cough or to get illnesses, different illnesses. The dampness, the level of dampness that is under there is just unbelievable. So today we've just taken matters in our own hands, and it's just beginning to just take shape. We are literally getting to clear up stuff that has been here endless for ages, just to try and clear up. But you can hear the goats are coughing, and it won't be anything. It's a lot of that is this.
Yeah.
We're going to make sure now we clean up. By the time you leave, at least you're satisfied that you've laid the basis for what then they can use to do the other stuff. You have to be hands-on. There is no way you can be a telefarmer and ever make it. It's very difficult, nearly impossible.
Mr. Jaded, I'm sure you can see that.
Yes.
There was a message that came in the chat room here, which was, it's a private message. Someone says, Assalamu alaikum, my name is Uthman, based in the USA. I've been following you on the radio. If you don't mind, can you please share with your contacts? Okay, that's the private one. Someone says, I'm on this similar journey of agriculture and all his points are valid. Having a supportive partner is so vital in agro-business. Otherwise, it will take twice as much time to make a headway. And actually, I forgot to mention this while I was talking, which is there's always the competition between living a miserable life in the West as you send money home when results are hard to come by. You pump in a lot of money. Actually, the earliest you can really reap money back in an agricultural investment is 3 years, sometimes 5 years, for you to just break even and then start making profit. There are those that will come in and they will but 3 years to 5 years is really a sort of an acceptable time. Around that time, many of us suffer. Living in the West, you live in a cramped place. You are denying yourself a lot because you're trying to establish something back home. The problem, though, is the vision. You have a vision of what you want. For example, like I said, I took 6 months just doing research online in the BBC before I left.
Yeah.
You come now to a farm manager or to the farm workers who have no idea about this vision. How to translate this vision from your head, from the theories and all the research you have done onto the ground to practically have it is a pain. You have very limited time. You come and lay out what you would want done, and then it's not done the way you want it. I'll stop there, Jaden, so that we can
Thank you very much. I've got a message here on the chat room. This is from Sese, and he says, that's because some concepts are new in Uganda, Afro-business. I'm on this similar journey of agriculture, and your points are valid. Having a supportive partner, as you said, is so vital in agribusiness. and otherwise it will take you twice as much to make headway. You both have to be very invested and willing to learn and keep. So the supportive family, a supportive wife is very important in this business. And he's asked, where did you get your tractors from? Because I've tried to source at a fair price. Maybe you can add that in the chat room, Sheikh Kassim.
Right. Well, just a quick one is the tractors are from, again, we have a whole WhatsApp group that has tractor owners across the whole of Uganda. So that again helps you to know the moment you flag I'm in this area,
yeah,
they will immediately give you advice on where to find the right tractor and at how much in that particular area. So that one is, but there's one called Tractor Share is an app in Uganda that does that. But WhatsApp group, if they want, they can just contact me privately and I can help them get onto that. You can just get the tractors anywhere in Uganda.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sheikh Kassim. I can see Musa Lugema, your hands up. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Just out of curiosity, Kassim, Kayira, what's your vision, mission, and objectives? And let's look at, just out of curiosity, and let's look at the three horizons in the business strategies, like the short-term horizon in the next 2 years, medium term, 5 years, and then long-term in 10 years. What's your mission, vision? And I've got a few more questions, but let's start with that one.
On to a Kassim now. All right. Well, my mission was to be one of the best suppliers of good beef in the country. So the idea is we've been producing it. I've been taking your goats to your home, to your parents' home. But the idea, inshallah, is very soon we shall just be putting our meat in the butcher and we'll just have the supply of udhi. I don't want to leave the ruhiya off the table because it's what has made us really, it's sort of given us a push in that direction. But we want to be one of the best meat producers. But we're also going into crop production because we are getting avocados, inshallah, pawpaws and coffee. And avocados are for the UK market, specifically in the north of England, where I am, and I've seen how the fruit market works. So gonja, bananas, and avocados are really targets for the northeast of England because London is oversupplied. So once we get to the northeast, I think we can sort of do that. And that is within the next 2 to 5 years at the very latest, bi'idhnillah. I can see the progress sort of coming in because one of the biggest problems, especially in the dry areas here, is lack of water. But I think this time around, alhamdulillah, I've come in and my target was to make sure I leave solar water pumping running across the entire farm. That means now we leave alone rain-fed agriculture, which is reliant heavily on the seasons. Sometimes it can be very, very dry in this area. Where I am now is Uganda's maize basket. So we produce the sort of the bulk of the maize that is consumed in the country. So being in here, but the times when the harvests are really, really bad, and the only way out is to have like alternative irrigation systems. So we are trying, inshallah, by the end of this coming month, March, inshallah, we will hopefully have water on the farm, and that will make a difference. But like I said, make no pretense, this is work in progress. I don't want to sound like this is the huge dream farm that you're coming to. It's a lot of work, but it is targeted work. And like you said, the vision is within 5 to 10 years, we want to be one of the best meat producers or even meat sellers. It might not be our own meat, but we should be the middle people for the rest of the people within the area because we have access. I have access to the social media, to the social market, which many people don't have access to.
Thank you very much for that question. What was the next question, Musa?
Now, okay, yeah, my other question is, okay, you've talked about your internationalization strategy, where it looks like you want to penetrate the markets, the European markets, especially here in the UK. I mean, north of England. You've talked about your diversification strategy, where you intend to get into crops. Of the avocado you've talked about now. Are you looking at opening up a new, I mean, like having Uganda as your head, your corporate office, your headquarters, and then opening up other branches elsewhere in Uganda or out abroad?
Well, I think that is work in progress. I think we'll determine once we get there. We wanted to, first of all, clear out the land. There's a lot of bush area that needs clearing. Very expensive venture. I mean, whatever way you look at it, whether you go through down the tractor route or down the prisoner route, because sometimes you bring in prisoners, about 80 to 100 to come and clear a stretch of land. It feels bad. I mean, it has its own social issues, but for me, I feel like I bring them on, they'll have a goat or sheep or a couple of those for the day, and that's a different meal while working for me, while clearing the land. So there are moral issues surrounding that I'd rather avoid it. But there is the tractor route. Tractors are very, very expensive. So we are looking at, once we have that sorted, because part of the problem has been we have been so much of raw material producers. I'm thinking about the possibility of being able to bring in at least a sort of value addition on the farm at first stage, at least if we can't do the, like to the very end. Have some kind of value addition to what we have as a way of one, cutting out a little bit of the middleman, but also increasing our own returns as a strategy. But in terms of the headquarters and so on, I mean, this is home. This is where we are doing the production. Elsewhere could be the branches when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens. But the dream is so big, but it's building up. So it's work in progress. So I think I'll insist with that. It's work in progress, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Kassim. I think your opener has tickled people. Estella Makumbi on the chat room says, I'm on the same journey and I'm going to paint the house from top to bottom. And I'm looking to manually reactivate my banana plantation. Hussein is asking, how is the land in Gulu? So that's moving away from the center, which has always been the agricultural hub of Uganda. And then you mentioned that this is seasonal capital. And what is your main source of cash flow?
Main source of cash flow. Since I left the BBC now, I've been engaged in two lines of work. First line is the public speaking. I do public speaking, especially for universities. The kind of experience that you build up actually puts you on the market, and there are particular areas that you become an expert in. Things to do, for example, with the Great Lakes region and now what's going on there, that puts you really in the limelight. But also importantly, things to do with journalism and how we've covered the media. So that's one line, and COVID affected that very badly. But it's picked up again, alhamdulillah. Then I do Uber. I Uber because I'm looking for the flexibility that allows me to move. Uber is one place where you can say, I'm looking for 2,000 this week, and whether come rain, come shine, you have the sleepless nights until you hit that target, and then you can just relax back. Allows you the flexibility to see family and so on. And that is really sort of what is feeding. The farm is a big hole that, eats up everything that you bring. However much you bring, it will eat it, and it still wants. It's a monster of sorts. But then there are other smaller investments sort of moving that sometimes bring in petty cash that allows you at least to move. But mainly, really, these are sort of the main areas. Yeah.
That's been a very good experience, Sheikh Kassim. And when we're growing up, and His Excellency the President used to talk about value addition, and people were saying we can't go back to the days of barter trade, for example, and value addition was a new thing in the vocabulary of Uganda. But you have demonstrated that to add value to the raw product at source is a very good way of jump-starting your business and going international. So what are the technology challenges that people have experienced, especially in agriculture? Because there's programs here in the UK where tractors are remotely run and they space the crops or they harvest the crops in a way that the human mind or the human hand cannot do. Now, in terms of the animals, do you envisage bringing technology, say, for milking or for mixing the silage? And what plans have you got in those areas, considering that this is heavy investment?
already there, Jaden. People are already there, and they are actually very much available. You go for all these trade fairs that take place in Uganda at the moment. A lot of these things have come in. The Dutch government has done a brilliant job. The Germans are here. The South Africans are here. They are carrying out trainings like for trade for farmers nearly every day. You just need to find the right groups of people. Join groups, be part of associations. People are getting access to tractors. Sometimes if you're a group of 30 people, government through Operation Wealth Creation will provide you with the tractors. Hussein, I've seen you saying you did not answer your question. I think it's the land in Gulu, one of the most fertile lands available. But I'm beginning to develop a fear that after some time, people in Gulu, people might start feeling uncomfortable with all the influx that is going in there. People have gone in their hordes to invade this area. You know, you get to Omoro now, you see the sugar factories that are there. Everybody's running. It's very fertile land. Ownership system is such that it's communally owned, so it will be the chief sort of authorizing you to own the land. It's beautiful, it's fertile land, and nearly anything will grow there. And this is the Uganda that people never knew, because the attitude was a person in Uganda would always think Uganda is the best place, and going out would be very, very scary. Until we started, sort of taking these huge leaps, moving from Bombo, for example, where I was sitting on small land, and then coming to Kiriandongo. You are buying 8 million an acre at that time, which is a couple of years ago. An acre in Bombo now is 30 million. You come to Kiriandongo, you find it at 1.4, 1.5 million. So for your 8 million an acre in Bombo, you are getting nearly 6, 7 acres of land in Kiriandongo. It doesn't take any brains sort of thing. And with good road systems now, when you have a road where, for example, it takes me 2.5 hours to 3 hours to be on the farm, it means you can actually come on the farm, be there for a day, and go back to Kampala, and you're perfectly fine. The same amount of time you'd spend in traffic jam on Entebbe Road if you're not using the express. So if you start thinking along those lines, then it sort of opens up options. But even Gulu, which let me say Acholi land for that particular matter, it's really been a very, very big boost. It's beautiful. If you see the amount of money that is going in there now, many cattle keepers have left these areas and gone there into the land, and some conflicts are beginning to come out there. So because of all that pressure, I think it might be best, if you're already there, alhamdulillah. If you are not, probably just try expanding your horizons. It might be too overcrowded very soon.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Kassim. I think I'm buying my tickets soon. So Wedi Masaba, I can see your hand is up. So Wedi, I'll come to you. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Hello, guys. Hello, Sheikh Kayira. I can see you. Even your skin complexion has even changed already. I can tell there's something organic going into inside you. Hey, now coming back to the subject matter with land, I'm one person that always believes that Uganda is the only place on earth where land is still cheap compared to any other place. Because in Uganda, there are still places where you can still access an acre of land at 1 million shilling. I remember when I was just coming into the UK, that time, that was early 2000, there were people from Central, Masaka, and let's say Buganda region, people that had money. They were coming into the eastern parts of Mbale. We were talking about Sironko, for those who know Mbale very well. Sironko, there's a place called Bulambuli, Bunambutie. Around those areas, they have one of the best and fertile lands, flat and fertile land. So they came in there with huge monies. We thought it was a joke. People sold up their land, and Indians joined the bandwagon. People are doing serious farming there. The Indians are into serious farming in Uganda. For example, the largest producer of eggs in Uganda is an Indian. He produces 1 million trays a day. 1 million trays a day. And this guy it's capital intense when you want to go into a large scale industry. I had a chance. I've got a friend who was also in a similar business. He set up a model farm in Kachiri, for people that want for people that want knowledge, that want to get all this information about farming. He's got a model farm in Kachiri, it's called Wagaba Mixed Farm. He's into dairy farming and poultry. He's one of the beneficiaries that benefited from things like the Dutch that say Kayira was talking about. He's invested heavily in machinery. He got some of these machineries on loan from the Dutch and the Germans, but he has told me, that is what he has told me, that he's successfully paid off some of these debts. I've been to his dairy factory where when he visited me in the UK at some point, we went into a hotel in north of England. When he tested the yogurt, he told me that this is the kind of thing I want on my farm. 12 months later, when I went to Kampala, he asked me to visit him at the farm, and he had produced exactly the same type of yogurt, and he had added value, because he told me that the problem with Uganda is people are sinking money into non-productive things. For example, he's a kind of guy that was telling me that what is the point in investing 20 billion shilling in an arcade somewhere in the suburbs of Kampala, then people will not even be renting it, you're tying down the money. He said they've been arguing government to invest money, to put money into these farmers, the entrepreneurs, people that can produce. And those are some of the challenges. But to me, but looking at how much investment he has put into farming, I will not even think about going into it, because it's so much money that he has invested in. At some point, he came to the UK. We went to buy a machine in Swindon that does packaging. The machine was going for £50,000. £50,000. And in my brain, I was like, this small machine that is going to do the packaging is going for £50,000. Goodness me, I'm only struggling to raise £5,000 to start something. I said, what is this?
That is the problem you are raising there, Mr. Masaba. It's like you need the capital investment, but the capital needs collateral. So are you going to put your farm as collateral and invest
and this
machineries?
This is the thing. Then I took a tour of his farm, and he was showing me how much each machinery had costed, because one of the generators that was powering his farm, he got it from Germany, and one generator was going for 200 million. So to me, I told him, I can't join you. I can't even think about a farm. And he was busy telling me that, no, you can start small, because he was telling me to go into poultry, and he told me he can help me start up with about, say, 5,000 birds, move forward, because his farm holds 100,000 birds. But he was telling me that he can help me to start off with between 1,000 to 5 or 2. But the thing he was telling me that, but you have to pack your bags and come to Uganda.
That's what Sheikh Kassim called the leap of faith.
That you have to pack your bags. He told me, so wait, you're not going to do this remotely. Pack your bags if you want me to help you. Come and sit here with me. That's the
Soed, I think Jaden would be a very good one to give us his own experience of poultry, because the very poultry you're talking about, Jaden has not mentioned his own story, which I thought would be there. He's, I would say, well, successful or near successful poultry farmer. He's not mentioned that, and he's away. You know, he's absent as well. It would be good to sort of hear his own take on the poultry line of business. But one thing actually that Swed you bring in, the point that you raised actually brings me to just point out one thing that I would like us as people having a conversation tonight probably to think about. It's about group formations, doing things in groups, especially people in the diaspora. Ugandans are very suspicious, very, very suspicious. And I think probably, well, honestly, through experiences that they've had in the past and getting people to sort of work together. Because if I got Soed, I got Jaden, I got Hajat Sar, I got Hafsa, and we put together money, the speed with which we can actually turn around a project as compared to when it takes you to start saving and, you know, you look for this amount of money and so on, would be forever. I think we need to open our hearts out. Go for Salah. Let's just do Salah to Istikhara. Let us wake up and do Salah to Layl and ask Allah to give us that. I brought 2 initiatives that actually helped, you know, Jaden, to change the way we view things.
Yeah.
We bought 42 acres of land in Mpiji on Masaka Road, where I came up with the concept and said, guys, we are living in the diaspora. Many of us are looking at going back home. But you go back, you buy a plot very expensively, you build a very expensive house, but it is sitting in a slum.
Yeah.
For a life that you have lived away, it's not really worth it. Why don't we put ourselves together? It's not business, it's not commercially oriented. We just go get a piece of land and then start developing it into how we want it. We put our own roads, we demarcate, we put hospitals, we put all of that. It seemed like an impossible dream. People really, there were a few people that came in with the belief and said, Kassim, we are going with you.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up, we were only 15 people, Banajadel.
Yeah.
We paid 1.2 billion for the land there in PG. We bought 42 acres in one parcel. 8 beautiful hills just looking at each other. Now we've just carved out a city that is already being called London Village in that place. 2 years later, when it started,
that's
just
going
like
to change.
And it was a group thing. We ended up having 4 categories of people. We had group 1, which was the 15 original people. Before we knew it, once we found the land, people started jumping on the bandwagon and saying, oh, it can be happening, it can be happening. Yeah. We ended up with all these different places because people believe what they have seen, but there are those believers, and I think we need to start opening up, like Soed was saying. Some of these businesses require a lot of money, but if we put together, we can do it. And we've done it also with another project that is ongoing. I want to just mention it, but we have another group of 30 people with whom we joined up, and we are trying to come up with something. Once it's ready, inshallah, we shall come back and talk about it. But we need to start trusting one another. We just need to, get in there and do it. So Ed, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just thought the idea of getting us together must be coming now, because you raise capital very quickly.
At this point, let me bring in. So wait, if you hang in there, let me bring Estelle Makumbi. His hand has been up for some time. Can you unmute yourself and make your contribution?
Hello, good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I've joined the bandwagon. Last week I was talking from London. Now I'm back in Uganda.
Congratulations.
I've immigrated totally. I'm going to hotel management. I had one at Kassim Gardens, which is located in Sabala. But it was hard work. But if persist, you can achieve your aims. For us, what we fail to understand, don't do any survey before you go into the business. Hotel management is a place where people can make money. People build so many houses. I will talk about Uganda, but so many houses. Why can't you have a conglomeration of having all those coming under one unit? If you come at one unit to make up like bed and breakfast run by someone, people were looking for apartments. The apartments, if you rent those things, a day, you can get at least say $40. You might have some voids, but 6 months down the road, you make it up.
Mr. Makumbi, are you talking about tourism, local tourism and international tourism?
Well, there's local tourism as well, and international tourism. You find coming Christmas, you can't get accommodation in Kampala, and it's very expensive. Come Easter, come June, July, accommodation becomes an issue in Kampala. Now the people, most of them are coming from Kenya, come to Kampala for weekend break. And if you can make a group whereby you connect accommodation Kampala and tourism, taking people into the national parks, there's a lot of money. What you need other than buying those expensive cars, buy these combi cars, buy these cars for the tourists. From here to Kampala, from here to Maction Falls, each person pays at least $400. If you have those things together, put together, you have a van of 8 people, that's $3,200. You can easily make it.
Just before I go to Musa Lugemwa, what was it that motivated you, that put the spark in you to leave the luxury of London to relocate to Uganda?
What I thought, I look at it, if I stay in London for so long, when it comes to retirement, what you've achieved will be taken away, will be eaten away by the state. When they put in the home, yeah, if you've got any house, you use the house as a crowd to pay for your medical bills and accommodation. Yeah. By the time you die, you are penniless. Your family will be left with nothing. So that's what motivated me to leave that place. And I saw the quality of life in this place. It is. People have been talking about, yeah, you can be in Kampala, you can do urban farming. If you really do like the Israel what they do, you can do those things around. But the problem is, well, for you to understand, you have to integrate with society. And security nowadays has become an issue. But if you invest so heavily and provide accommodation and provide employment to the locals, the rate of unemployment is so high. If you bring all those talents or what you've learned from that, you will be providing jobs for the locals. But
that is a very important point you've brought there, because I asked Sheikh Kassim, who is that investment for? Is it for ourselves? Is it for our children? But you've brought in another element of investing for the community, which is a noble thing to do, rather than giving an old trouser here and a pair of shoes that you're creating them, giving them the capacity to better themselves by working for you, but also gaining skills that and attitudes that you're bringing from the West back to Uganda.
For example, in my place, casually at least I employ not less than 10 people. At least not less than 10 people. And that is almost not part-time job, it's almost full-time job. And the business is expanding. And I think that by the time come 2 or 3 years, I would have at least be able to employ at least around 40 people.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Can we have Musa Lugemo, and then I'll ask the sisters. You must have a contribution either as the sole proprietor or as a wife to somebody who started that journey. What has been your contribution, and how do you find that leap of faith? Musa, can you unmute yourself, please?
This is a question for Sheikh Kassim, Kayira, and Makumbi. In terms of at a macro level, this macro environmental analysis, do you find in terms of forecasting the micro situations in Uganda, would politics scare you at all? Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night and think of what would happen tomorrow if there's any political mayhem? What will happen to your business?
Okay.
Can I come in?
Just curious, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very pertinent. That's a very pertinent question, because we've seen, for those of us who are old enough to have lived through the regimes of the different governments that have changed hands in Uganda, we've seen people lose their entire livelihood. So that's a very pertinent question, and it's a cause of worry for somebody who is looking to invest their hard-earned money. Mr. Makumbi.
Can I come in? Yeah. Can I come in?
Sure.
Yes.
Hello. I think when you're abroad, security becomes exaggerated. I've been here for 3 days. I don't listen to the news.
Thank you very much, Mr. Makumbi.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You're on the right path there.
I'm what?
You're on the right path.
Yeah, the thing is, when we become embodied in politics and the business don't go hand in hand. At times you have to sacrifice one to say. And fortunately, I've been disappointed by most of our politicians. They say one thing in the public and they do things otherwise in the private. So if you are going to do your business, you part with politics. You can support, but don't fully engage in politics. Each party will drain you out. They will really empty your pockets and you will fail.
I think politics is like supporting a football team, and you don't know when to stop. And once you've started it, you keep going. What has your experience been?
What should we really look at? Unemployment. Unless we locals get involved into those sides, we have a lot of problems. There's a lot of influx. People are coming in from South Africa, Asians coming in. If you don't come to challenge them, we have a lot of political problems come 20 years down the road. We go back to where we are in 1970s, whereby we are only workers and the economy will be managed by the foreigners. At least we had some liberation somehow, but it's slipping away by not fearing to come back and invest.
Sheikh
There's a
Kassim,
project I'm working
what
on.
has your experience been in terms of politics? Because you have been high profile, and everybody at one point knew you as the voice of the BBC in Uganda. So
that has its cost. That definitely has its costs. I avoid politics as much as I can, but you can't be blind to it. You should know what is going on, and I think that helps. But I think for me, I'm thinking you should do due diligence. That even every investment is a risk. If you do not embark on the risk, you can never make money. The second thing is in due diligence, you get insurance. For example, now in agriculture, there's agricultural insurance, where, for example, you put money into an insurance fund in case you lose your crops, which likely happens. At least you do not lose your entire yield. At least you can get compensated. So insurance is one other element, but diversification also is the other. Try to sort of branch out. Like if you start growing and your growth is so well, because.
So we are losing Sheikh Kassim there. The bandwidth is quite low, unfortunately, but we will bring him in. I said I was going to come to the mothers, the sisters, the aunties who are involved in this journey of investment or business. How has it impacted you as a mother? How has it impacted you as a daughter? Or how has it impacted you as the sole proprietor? Can we have your contributions from our sisters, please?
I was still, they intercepted me with before.
Okay.
My remarks.
Okay, Mr. Masaba, can you complete your burning point?
Let me wrap up my thing. Now, the point that Sheikh Kayira, brought up, and I was concluding on that point, is when I asked my friend how he managed to mobilize all that capital and how he got to where he is, he told me that you need to have trusted friends to begin with. He said you don't have to overstay where you are until you begin growing gray hair and you think you can come and begin managing a business in retirement. He said that there are certain complex issues that you can never handle at old age. So he told me the earlier the better. Then he cited an example of a hotel industry that Mr. Makumbi is talking about. For example, my town in Mbale, you walk to Mbale any time of the day, and if it's past midnight or it's past 9 o'clock in the evening, you may find it difficult to get a hotel. Inside the town. It's if you don't book it in advance, and yet there's so many of them. The hotel industry, I don't know how it works. To be honest, it's one thing that has defeated. I don't know where these people come from that occupy these hotels. During the day, you may think there's no money, but these hotels fill up, and it's not just people going to have fun. It's business people who are on business trips that come to these places, and government workshops, people, NGOs bringing workshops, and business is booming in the hotel industry. In hospitality generally, it's doing very well. And then another thing is what Mr. Makumbi talked about, and Sheikh Kayira, is with politics, going back to what our brother said, is when you want to thrive or you want to do your business, is try to separate your businesses from politics. I was privy to attending a function in Mityana where the famous Zake comes from. Zake, the politician, the Nuuk politician.
Yeah.
His dad owns hotels in Mityana, right? But what amazed me, what I liked about the setup is I was booked in one of the hotels, but when I stayed in there, they have written in certain spot corners of the hotels, no politics allowed here, no discussions about politics, please. So you can see that even the men that are families that are within politics, they try to separate their businesses from politics. So that tells you that that's the way to go. Go in, put your head down, do your thing, and forget about this issue of saying, you know, my brother Rugeme is saying, have you ever thought about things changing and losing? Yeah, of course that one will be there. Like you said, people that have witnessed all these governments in the past, they have lost their things, but it does not stop you. I was on a flight one day from Uganda, and there was some white guy with a very dirty jeans on the flight. I asked him where he was coming from. He told me he was from Juba. And that time, people were still fighting in Juba. And then when I asked him what he was doing in Juba, he told me that's where the money is. He told me that's where the money is. That was his answer. So you can take advantage of the disorganization that is within Uganda right now. You profit from the crisis that is there. You take the chances that are there and make the money. It's just that some of us haven't gotten to that stage where we can, you know, throw in the towel and say, we call it quits with England and we pack our bags like Mr. Kassim and our brother Makumbi.
Thank you very much, Soweidi Masaba, for those contributions. And this is our weekly show, Come Let's Talk with Kassim. And you brought in a very good disclaimer there about not engaging in politics. We'll leave this show as it is. It's non-partisan, it's non-political. We can discuss politics generally, but we're not going to throw our weight behind any political party or behind any politicians. Let's just keep it as a chatting room, a place where we share ideas and experiences, where we learn from each other. Can we have contributions from our sisters in terms of the investments that you've experienced? I'm going to come randomly. I'm assuming the names that are showing for our sisters. I've got Hajara. Hajara, can you unmute yourself and give us your experience, please? Or can you type your question or comment or concerns from what you've heard in the chat room? And I'll come to Habiba. Habiba, can you unmute yourself and give us an experience? Surely we've all had those experiences. We've either invested in a small business or we've seen people invest in the business. What has the journey been? Has it been a pit hole, and have they benefited from it? And what are the lessons that we can learn from? I've got iPhone clapping. Can you unmute yourself and can you clap audibly so that we can hear your contribution?
Hello.
Hello.
Assalamu alaikum to Haji, Kassim, and all Muslims here.
Wa alaikum salam and welcome to the show. Can you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Wolfman. I'm in Boston.
Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. So thank you for sharing the ideas here. I just have one quick question about hotels and apartments. One of the members here talked about it, but I wanted to know the difference between how much I can make in apartments and how much I can make in hotels. If someone was thinking about starting real estate, do you think it's better to do hotels or apartments? Thank you.
I think that question would be directed to Soweidi and Mr. Makumbi.
Mr. Jaden, there's also Sese who says she's female, so she might be, you are looking for the females.
Okay, a quick answer to that question, Mr. Makumbi. What would be the preference to invest in a hotel or in apartments, and what are the returns of investment? I know it differs from where you are.
I think the advice is don't go into return, it's better going to hotels. You might have, say, 3 months void, but 9 months you make money. A hot, for example, I can give an example. If one comes to living room, he pays $40 per night. And if has a meal, it costs at least $10 a night. And you will compare what you use. It's not all that very expensive. You know how things are done. But if I've got a real estate in Kampala, people can afford to pay 4 million. They can afford to build their own houses. You find those people who are struggling, they don't pay, you keep on chasing them, and they vandalize the house. End up that much of your money is eaten into doing repair is damaging. But someone comes, if you're in a hotel, someone comes in for a day, he goes, another one comes in. What you have to do is to invest in having a washing machine and someone who can do the ironing and cleaning up the rooms as soon as they vacate.
Okay, let's throw the same question to Soweidi Masaba, please.
Yeah, I think those challenges, just like in other businesses, you'll have challenges, but the thing is, there are two approaches here. It depends. If it is time for you to pack your bags and go back home, the hotel or a bed and breakfast will be a good model or a good investment for you because your presence matters a lot. But if you're going, you still have a few years to hang in the diaspora, real estate can be a safer bet. It's like bonds, investing in bonds. It's safer in that you know your money is there. The whoever is in charge of collection, or you'll have a few tenants that will mess up and refuse to pay. But at least you know that at time T, when you fly back and pick those bags up, that those properties are there. You can throw them out, begin a new chapter. You can liquidate your properties and go into investment. So it's a safe bet. It's better than keeping money in the bank. It's better than keeping money in Europe. You secure a place. You know you've got your investment there. Just put it that your investment is there. You can still make money out of it when that time comes. They can mismanage it while you're in the UK, but the time you go back, you'll get it. Then another approach is this. You can build up a hotel or a bed and breakfast, then you lease it out. You give it out to someone to manage it. Then that person gives you the money. You say, I want 10 million a month from my thing. Then someone will bargain with you and they say, me, I will be giving 8 million. My brother owns a hotel and that's how he's running it. He first gave it to his children. They messed it up. He threw them out. Now he got an Indian who has rented the whole place. The Indian pays him rent and the Indian runs the services and runs the whole business.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masaba. Can we have
Can I come in? Maybe?
Just before you come in, I've got Sese, who's been itching to say something. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, so good evening. Okay, so I'm on a similar route to Mr. Kayira. And okay, so how did I get into it? I suppose would be the first step. My mother. So my mother really, drove this in me, and we moved to the UK when we were quite young. But what my mom did was she made sure that we were always going back home. So every year she would take us back to Uganda, and every time we would be home, she would make sure that she's taking us around. Our grandparents, my father too. So that was one of the biggest drives to get me started, or have some sort of passion to be at home. And then what I decided to do was get into a career where I have the option to actually be remote. And for the last 6+ years, I have been working remote. So when COVID hit, although we could work remote in the UK, at that point you were not allowed to be out of the country. But when COVID hit, I took advantage, and I kind of just say, what's the worst that could happen? So I moved back home. Luckily at that point, because we had been going back and forth so many times. My mom had bought, quite substantial land, and, she had kind of pushed me to do it. My first piece of land, actually, my mom tricked me. She asked me for money. She kind of said, can I borrow some money off you? And she bought land for me. And when I went home that year with her, she told me, this is the money that you gave me. So if you guys want to get your kids involved, that could be another way. But it was quite clever, because once she did that, it became addictive. So then I started thinking, okay, this could actually work. So then, we started expanding. And then, my mom's she's quite the cunning woman. So what she did, she also, every time I would visit her, she would put on agriculture shows, and she would make me watch them with her, people who are investing in, who are investing in agriculture, farming, animals, both animals and crops. So then you kind of, because you're with someone for so long, and, every time she kept pushing me to do it, and my, siblings. So then, when I was in Uganda in 2020, I took advantage of it. And, it started as a small project. And then it's, once you start farming, it becomes very addictive, because it's therapeutic. However, the challenges I found in Uganda, one was people actually understanding or getting your concept of the vision you really have, as Mr. Kayira said. It's very difficult to convince or to transfer your concept to people. A lot of the things that you learn, and a lot of the knowledge I know about farming, I learned online. YouTube is everyone's friend, so utilize YouTube as much as possible. Join into groups and learn about permaculture, whatever. Just learn and learn and learn. But the thing is, a lot of people don't understand that in Uganda, and Uganda has a very young population. Unfortunately, what I found about that is that, yes, we have a young population, and maybe I have been quite unlucky, because even to the final people who actually did make a difference to my farming project were my mom's contacts. But the younger guys that we were getting, anyone below 25 just had no idea what they were doing. They were there to actually just waste time. They weren't doing what we wanted them to do. Although I was in Uganda, I was still working. So I still had my day-to-day UK job. So it meant that I couldn't focus, or I couldn't be at the farm every single day. So that was challenging. And even having my husband involved, he wasn't able to be there every single day. So when Mr. Kayira said that, you have to have a supportive partner who also understands what you're trying to achieve, that is so vital, because until my husband actually saw what we were trying to achieve after the first season, he wasn't buying it either. So you have to make sure that, you sell the idea. It's not something that you wake up and you have a passion for. I think for me anyway, it wasn't like that. So one of the things, again, is getting people to, have a passion for what you're doing. It's very difficult, especially in Uganda. It seems like people are looking for, quick wins and quick fixes. They're not willing to invest or, put the work into it. Then the other thing I also found really difficult was this whole land grabbing thing in Uganda. It's challenging. Honestly, if you're going to buy a lot of land, make sure you thoroughly and thoroughly do your due diligence. Do not ever buy land without a lawyer who has a clue what they're doing. Because we had I had those issues last year, and even if I was there, I had a similar issue. So be very careful. Then I also found that with crop farming, it's getting the different varieties of, the different crops that you may want to put on the market if you're going to be marketing. So that was another challenge I found. Like, I wanted to have a whole field of soya, but the specific soya bean that I was looking for was 30,000, I think they were talking about. We're talking about 30,000 a kilo. And 30,000 shillings is quite a lot of money for just 1 kilogram, So I had to then, and one of my mom's friends said, go to Gulu, and there is, they have soya there. So, you know, finding things like that in the vicinity that you're in can be quite challenging in Uganda. Also, another thing is maintenance. So getting someone to actually, you know, maintain whatever you're doing when you're not there. So I have a very young family. I'm just in my early 30s, but I have a young family. So I have to, and I just had children. So having to be in Uganda and then, you know, come back to the UK to have my children and go back home, making sure I had someone there on the ground to actually keep pushing what I wanted to do was also challenging. Because yes, I knew what I wanted, but again, someone to manage, you know, your projects on a daily basis is difficult. So you may want to be there, but I would encourage anyone who actually has a remote job or has the opportunity to do what I did, and, you know, up and go. If you have a remote job, or if you can convince the company you work for to let you do that, try it that way. So what I did is I went the first 6 months and then came back 2 months and then went back. So try and do that.
What you did with?
Pardon?
What sort of farming was that you were handling?
Crop. So yeah. It was made. I started off with crop farming simply because yes, I wanted to grow things that I love.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sister Sese, and you've given some very pertinent points there. The ones that I picked up, which are quite important, is start small, because not everybody can raise that big capital. So start small and build it up around your passion. Be persistent with selling your dream and your vision. The concept has got to come from yourself, other than allowing somebody to put their stamp on what is supposed to be your investment. And the biggest thing you mentioned there is the trust, because I know somebody who was in Oman at the time when Oman was good, and they sent their money to a relative to build for them a house, and when they came back, the relative had built themselves a small guest house, and they was told the money that we get out of this guest house will build for you whatever you wanted to build. So trust there is a very, very big element, especially where money is scarce. So you need to employ a very good lawyer or solicitor. The time now is coming to 10 o'clock. This is where I would normally end, but with your permission, because we started late, can we extend it to 10:30 at least, so that we can catch some of those burning issues that are coming forward? By consensus, can I have a show of hands or a tick in the chat box for us to continue until 10:30, or should we wind it up at this point? Because this is a discussion which we've had in the past, and we thought it was not going to be lively, but it's been very lively. There's a lot of sharing of good information. For example, Sowedi has put in the chat box that visit Wagaba Mixed Farm in Kakiri for those who are interested in farming. And
he gives very free information. He is a very thorough guy. When you call him up, he will ask you to go with a book and a pen. He's a very serious guy. He will tell you, you give it a whole day to take you through, to take you on a tour of his farm, and he gives information free of charge. He's a very passionate guy when it comes to farming. He's not very mean with information. That's why I recommend that anyone that wants dairy farming, poultry farming, go to him. He's a young man with a wealth of knowledge about farming.
Thank you very much for that information. I've penciled that in my diary as well. Sheikh Kassim, I can see you've come back with something interesting. Let's have it.
Well, I've just raised my hand to vote for the 30 minutes extension. Yeah, but I think one of the other things that comes out is information sharing. You realize some people are so mean with information when it comes to, like things like investment and where opportunities are. Your luck is not my luck, Jaden. Yeah. We might even end up in the same industry and you thrive and I don't. And sometimes it just makes you so happy if you've helped someone. There are many people that have advised that have gone on to do better stuff than I have done, because the circumstances are different, and you're in a different league probably. The kind of assistance that you have, I started off, like having from 2 acres to build it to 250 acres. I think it's just unbelievable. Over 3 years, it's really something. But as we were setting off, the person that I started goat farming with is one of the best goat breeders in Uganda now, called Grace Woji. We started actually our journey together. I remember we were in the first training together. But we are kicking off, and her dad, who again was the chairman of the Uganda Land Board. So she had 400 acres available at her disposal as we were setting off. I have 2 acres that I'm setting off with. She has 400 acres. The difference is quite clear. So, you just said back, I think information sharing is very, very important. And I would plead with people not to think that when someone probably comes and talks, they are sort of trying to show off. You are trying to share experiences that actually become lessons for other people to sort of see where they can make improvements. There are times you see someone doing something, you go in and you do it better. And I think that's really, what that is for, the better. But also now mediatization, because I've helped Grace a lot, and I'm not even trying to show. When the BBC documentary that was done on her farm, I did the recommendation, did the setup. That put her on an international stage, and it became slightly different. Something I'd forgotten to flag is part of what has also pushed our own agenda is I opened a YouTube channel called Fantastic Africa, and I would encourage people when they find some time. When I come to Uganda, someone was asking about my other side income. I film on people's farms, their experiences, and we just choose the particular theme that we decide to follow. So we can just say, for example, the relationship between husband and wife, if it's good, and we go for that. So while we are filming about the cows, the goats, we are looking at how the husband relates with the wife and how it fits into the bigger picture. It might be about solar energy on the farm. It might be about technology. It's called Farmtastic. So as in the word farm, then tastic, not fantastic. It's Fantastic Africa. Yeah, and on that, I've been able at least to try to push those technological boundaries that people are sort of trying to break to be able to do a lot more. But information sharing is key. It's very, very key. Sharing information freely. You realize actually you gain a lot more by sharing it. Information has never reduced by being shared. It actually increases, and it doesn't take away. So that's very crucial, I think, for us to sort of think about.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Kassim. Can we have Musa Lugemwa again, please? Musa, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, hi, assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. My final question is, out of curiosity, what in terms of funding model that Brother Sowedi and me and Kassim talked about, what's your opinion on the IPOs, Sheikh Kassim, Kayira, the IPO model, like going to raising funds via selling shares, public shares?
That has its own limitations. I think for you to get to an IPO status, one, you'd have to, it's actually, you're sort of crowdfunding, but you need to be out there. People need to know you. It would be a huge risk if you are, sort of throwing yourself out there and there's not enough of the people knowing what the product is. By the time you get to plug an IPO, you see big companies like Facebook, for example, when they went with an IPO, when they went public with that trying to raise money, it was immediate. When Twitter did it, was immediate. You build the brand first, and once you have the brand in people's faces, then it's much easier now to buy into the brand, and it would be a quick way to raise money. But many people now want things for their own legacy. You want it to be known as Kassim Kayira. Mine is Dream Harvest Farm. I'm looking at it as a family business, and we are still able to manage it. But you get to a point where if you see the kind of dreams that we want to do and how good they would be, the amount of money that we could raise, for example, through an IPO would come in quite handy. I would come here within a month. I can tell you, I can set up 50 acres of coffee, 30 acres of bananas, 20 acres of avocados comfortably without anything within a month. That's what money does. So if you have the money, if you have the money in your hands, then you are able to do that. It would be almost impossible to find such money unless you got a good deal of the government and you manage to raise the money. So the IPO route would be good, but probably within our African context and within the Ugandan context especially, it might be a hard one to come by. You never know who you are bringing in. You might actually lose your entire enterprise in the process. Someone comes and throws you out of your own business.
Thank you very much.
One last one at the back of that. Sorry. Now, in terms of your forecasting, up to that, looking at some of these the scenarios or the key drivers of change that you anticipate in the future, say, because you can look at the mega trends that have happened in the past and then try to forecast what's coming up in the future. Okay. Now, in your opinion, which of those, of course, apart from the obvious, like technology, of course, technology will advance and advance and advance. I mean, the seasonal rains and whatever. In your opinion, now let's go back. Do you, with these climate change and stuff, which are, I mean, the top three that you think will be affecting agriculture in the next 10 years in Uganda?
First one is we are running away from rain-fed agriculture. I said this every time I said, actually, allow me to comment before I respond to that, which is I might actually end up forgetting it. Yeah. I resolved as part of our investment plan to escort my money. So if I think I'm sending £1,000, I would rather look for £500 for my ticket to escort this 1,000 to make sure it's on the ground.
Yeah.
The moment you send the money remotely, what happens in between these school fees, you never know where the money is falling. So I made a very quick decision earlier on to escort my money. So even if it is 1,000, it might sound like a little money, or it's just 4 million going to 5 million at the best of times. I will escort that money because when I get it on the ground, what it will be able to achieve is just way too much. It's unbelievable. So going on now into the trends. First one is running away from rain-fed agriculture. I said this time, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, I'm hoping that in my month here, we are setting up that water source. And I've realized how great it is. This water source, if functioning pretty well, you are pumping 20,000 liters of water per hour. Solar power does it in such a way that if you have your tanks, the moment the volume just goes down a little bit, it just fills it up. And this is being done automatically because you're on solar. We have sunshine 365 days. I mean, this is no magic. You have the sunshine. We really have to look at how we do that. And evening, end of this month, I want to leave the farm and walk back, knowing that now I can irrigate. I made a huge investment into Pakchong Napier, which is one of the best feeds at the moment for cows, for example, and even goats. And planted the stuff, lost nearly 5 acres of that because the sun came in, burnt it sadly. I lost it. With the little rain now, which is now raining, you can hear on the Mabati there. I can assure you within a few days, you might come here and just see the stuff sprouting, but I didn't give up. I'm going to go back and plant again. But if I have my own water where I can start now feeding and irrigating these fields, I would be absolutely very far. 20,000 liters per hour, you are capable of even creating a dam and then you're pouring in water and people from the local community can't find a place to get water. Dry season is a nightmare. People graze at night because the grass, the dry grass, at least gets a bit of the dew from the sweat, from the heat of the day. So people are grazing right now. It's past midnight here in Uganda. It's actually 1 o'clock. People are grazing and there are people who will come onto my farm because daytime they can't cross. They'll find the spaces where you haven't fenced. They'll come and move their cows and in the morning you just find them. So those are footsteps of that. So first point is technology in water harvesting. So we are sort of going away from rain-fed agriculture. That will be a definite. 2, value addition. People making sure it is a very painful process. Where you grow, for example, your aubergines, you grow your ntura, you get your nakati. You go to the market in the they are underpaying you for an effort that has gone. To get a cabbage to the market, how much effort goes into that, the spraying, the watering, and then you get into the market, or even your tomatoes, you are under pressure for time. And then you get them in the market on Tunabu, Jirega. It's a very painful process. For the first time in Uganda, we've got a Haji who has started producing tomato paste. So they are getting the tomatoes and then they are making the paste, which allows the tomatoes to stay much longer. Tinned tomatoes. For the first time, you can imagine for all the years we've been here, not having a tomato factory with all the production that goes in. So value addition, absolute. Looking at everything, even if it is avocados, find a way you can peel them, at least take the flesh of the avocado, which can be used in the cosmetic industries, because reason being, you are losing the seed, which carries the weight. You are using the top shelf, which again is weight. You are sending more by just adding that little value. So value addition, absolute. Third one and last one, looking at the trends. There is never going to be a time when people will not want food. Populations are growing, even with efforts to try to reduce populations, food consumption is still there. Making sure now you increase production, because with increased production, you're almost guaranteed. A little bit of value addition, you are guaranteed of the market. And the only way you're doing that is because you're not depending on the rains, you are depending on the water that you can tap from the aquifers, from the underground.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Kassim, for that forecast. And I can add one onto that, what I would call hybridization, because the quality or the breed of the animals and crops that we've got are the local breeds, which can be resistant to disease, but the output is quite low. So if we hybridize by crossing them with the heifers from this end, from the west, like the what do they call them? Not the Borans. The Borans is from down south. Not even the Zebu.
The American, there's that American breed.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you cross them, you get something which is in the middle of the resistance, but which produces a lot more than what the local breeds can produce. So if you can throw that in on top of what Sheikh Kassim had said, the irrigation, the solar power, and the technology and value addition, and if you bring in the hybridization, then the outlook will be quite good. I'll bring in Mr. Makumbi at this point.
Hello.
Hello, you are unmuted. Can you?
Yeah, I think what keeps people over there is just the fear. We've been in that place with hustling life. If we've managed to live into that area, you can live in Uganda. What I advise, if you are going to invest in anything, just look for the second-hand things over there. Put them together. They are shows over there. When you ship them here, learn how to maintain them. They make life very easy. In Uganda, you dig down, say you dig down, I would say around 12 meters. You're on water base and you get water. Where I am, before I used to depend on national water, but I've got a well. I've cut off that. What I use the national water is only for where the cooking facilities, but the rest I'm using my own water. And the potential is there. I'm going to do mixed farming as well. Urban farming, anything that I use in my hotel has to be grown, homegrown in my area. So the problem, what I'm talking about is, don't fear. If you come here, drop in anywhere. We are willing to help or to give you advice how things can be done. What are the pitfalls, what we went through, where we lost money, and where you can make money. Don't come and avoid. For us being around, we know that the
Sorry, we are losing you there, Mr. Makumbi.
What I'm saying, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
What I'm saying, for us being abroad, we know that the best thing is to do is sharing information. But if at home, they know that they wouldn't like to share any information. That's where they fall apart and they run in trouble. If you come here, just drop in or go and see Sheikh Kayira, or come to me. I'll give you an advice. see the pitfalls, how the people be cheating you and where can make money. The thing is, there's money here if you persist. But please don't fear. The one advice is if anybody has got a young family, it might be a problem and it's very expensive here. But if the boys are grown or the girls have grown up, you can come here for some time and see how life is done. Don't fear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Makumbi. We've talked about the hard investment that we can see, and the animals, the housing, the tourism. How about the soft skills? Is there anybody who has considered investing in soft skills like customer service, like management, like audit or insurance? Because that's also an investment which you can take back home. And with the attitude of financial investment that we've got here in the UK and customer service, because customer service in Uganda is dead, it's not there. But if you can invest in training and human resource management, that kind of thing.
There's a friend of mine who is importing people from Turkey to come and train people who are going to Middle East, so that when they go to Middle East, to Middle East, they have the skills. Whereby if they become a chambermaid, they're really a chambermaid. If you want to become nanny, they become nannies. And what we found out that people, if are well qualified, you go to Middle East, you get a lot of money. But for us, we're just exporting people who have got no skills at all. And that's why they are being mistreated and don't get any money at all.
And
so
do we have to wait for somebody to come all the way from Turkey when we've got graduates from Makerere, from Kiambogo, from Islamic University, who can do those training, who can develop our own skills? You know, I know the hotels and tourism, they've got their own training facilities in, say, Sheraton Hotel or Lake Victoria Hotel and what is the Source of the Nile Hotel.
Will that become very elusive? And people who have got the skills, if they come down this side, they can make money by tapping into those skills, what we've been talking about. People, they claim to have skills, but they're same skills. That's what I found out in this place. Majority of them, they've got degrees by the same skills. Put them to task and they can't do anything.
Can we have Sheikh Kassim and then we'll come to Soedi Masaba in the next 10 minutes?
Mine is a small point, especially for those who intend to go into agriculture. I think there is a false belief, and it's unfortunately very British. They brought it to us and then we went back and now picked it up again. Thinking about owning land when you are, for example, investing in agriculture, you do not have to own the land. There are leasing options, and I think that those are 2 points. I wanted to raise two quick points just to leave people sort of thinking. You do not have to own land. I spent a lot of money purchasing land. I mean, think about buying. I was paying about 7 million per month just towards land, and I did that almost for 3 years non-stop to be able to get the land that we managed to get. Thinking back, although now I own the land and therefore can do what I want, someone who had taken the money that I've used and you lease the land, leasing land, for example, now will be about 130,000 per acre per season. So make it 260 for the same acre for the whole year, because you have 2 seasons in a year. If you are going to put in that amount of money and then you get the other whole money and put it seriously as an investment on the land, the returns from that would be actually immense. So I need to get people to start thinking around the fact that you do not necessarily have to own huge chunks of land. You can buy like 2 acres, but buy where you know that someone nearby or the neighbor has the potential to sell to you, but now has extra land that you can be leasing. That way you are able to use the land very cheaply, and if you do it productively, you can actually increase your money very quickly. That's a lesson of land. I mean, you see it along the way and you realize how much money you pumped into the land, sometimes that you are not using. I have a lot of land that has not been put to use, and it could have done a lot better if that money, for example, was being pumped into the project. 2, and final short message. If you have land, buy the land. It sounds like a contradiction to my first point. But if you have money, buy land. That land is not going to die. If you haven't decided what you want to do, if you are the person who is worrying about the political situations and the wars that are going to happen, plant trees. Buy your acre, put in trees. A very, I would have called him stupid, but now with the money he's made, I think it would be me stupid if I called him stupid.
Yeah.
But a certain Haji died, left his children. Children now shared the property. This boy bought 10 acres. He was playing matatu in the trading center there, always hard working. All he did was plant his eucalyptus trees and left them there. Umeme came and paid 990 million. I'm not just imagining. I saw the money and I shook. 990 million. Paid cash for the 10 acres of eucalyptus that this guy had planted and just forgotten about. Guy comes to Kampala, buys a building, 650 million. He said he has suffered so much being on the street. He bought himself a 150 million vehicle. You know, and this is the stupid guy who is playing Ludo on the street.
On the street.
So when you have the money, if you have some money that you don't know what to do with, buy land. You don't know what to do on the land, plant trees. Come back 5 years. There are trees that now grow very quickly, South Africa or Brazil. 3 years, 2 years, you're able to get the small poles that are used for construction. You can earn your money. So there's no loss in that. If you can't think about what you want to do on the land, plant trees, and then you can start thinking later. When you're ready, an excavator will just come and just dig them up, but you already have somewhere to start from. Never a time that you should actually underestimate. So those two things, buy land. If you can't buy land, lease land, but do something.
Good advice there, Sheikh Kassim. So Eddie Masaba, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, you raised, someone was talking about customer service. Customer service, I think a few Ugandans have now picked up the idea. I know previously, for example, the top industry, the top big players in the industry have been hiring Kenyans. It's because when you look at our hotel and customer service is predominantly taken up by people from Kenya. When you look at the top restaurants like fast food restaurants like Cafe Java's, they take some of their people for training to South Africa. You have seen the top managers in Cafe Java's are all Indians. So all these things now, you know, people have picked up the idea. I know of a brother in East London, is called Opio. He had his training company here. He's been doing training, training up people in customer service and various things. He recently managed to win a contract, and he's been doing a lot of work with the soldiers in Bombo. He's been training soldiers on taking them on various courses, but mainly customer service as well. So the people have picked up the idea of selling up the services. It's really good. When you come to the tourism industry, when you want to make the big money, going to high end, those big players, big boys who have been in the industry for a long time, you know, you need to knock on the door, and you need to have the right people, and then obviously the money will come in. The guy who's talking about, we've seen all the people that are running the tourism industry in Uganda, especially the foreigners. They will tell you that I came to Uganda as a tourist. I saw the opportunity. I never went back to America, or I went to Uganda and visited this. Probably I had a girlfriend, a Ugandan girlfriend. They introduced me to this. The same story with this guy, that Wekesa, the one with our safari, you know, Uganda tourism. You know, Wekesa Amos. When you listen to his story, he will tell you the same thing. I've got one of the girls who's my OG. She's from Umbale. She's Lydia Nandudu. She's owning big chunks of safari land. I was surprised, you know, in Uganda, I never knew that there are people that are having lodges that go for $2,000 a night. You can't believe it. They are there. In Uganda, there are lodges that go for $2,000 a night. Kura Ngiro, is it what? They are making money. When you sit down with them, they will take you through all this, and they tell you, you guys, you're in Europe. You can still sit in Europe and set up a website and lease up some of these places, and you can still make money. They wonder why we can't make money when we are living in Europe. It's them. They say we are seated in Kampala and we wait for these Bazungus to come down here and we chase them around. But you guys have got a chance there. You can still get these Bazungus and bring them here. So there you go. There's still opportunity for us to do. But you know, me, it's not my tourism is not my calling, to be honest. It's one of the things. It needs a lot of talking. I know you can talk a lot, but it's not my calling there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masaba, and thank you everybody for your contribution and your participation. Tonight, our topic has been investment and business, and we talked about investing home, and we have identified, without saying it, that home is Uganda or home is Africa, and the kind of things that we are looking to invest or have been tickled to invest agriculture, with the challenges of seasonality and drought, but we've heard about changing and modifying the way that we do agriculture from our traditional agriculture. We've got solar, plenty of it. Nobody can take it away from us. It's just how we tap it. We've got irrigation, which you can get from the solar. The land is there in plentiful, but be careful who you're buying the land from, because you might be buying what the Swahili call upepo. Before you know it, your money is gone and you're back to the 9 to 5 in London, in New York and Chicago. But it's also important that we start small. We cannot all generate that big capital to make our dreams come true. But the dream is ours. We are the first. We are living it, and our children and those who follow us. Let us all build. Let us come and trust each other. Let us look out for each other. Let us share information and experiences like this. And this is why this forum is very important. I didn't know you could find a hotel for £2,000 or $2,000 in Uganda. To me, that was the remit of the hotels in London. But if we've got such hotels in Uganda, then the potential, the possibilities are quite big. Not just the physical one. We've mentioned about customer service, training. We've got people with masters in human resources. We've got people with masters and PhDs in customer service. Why don't we invest such small soft skills back home? Those are the skills which will empower the people that we've left back home, the people who look onto us, who look to us to help them to come out of that poverty. And who are we to sit on the resources that we've got? While we develop ourselves, while we invest ourselves for our children and for ourselves, because it's our dream, let us also not forget the people that are back home. But remember, let us invest wisely, and let's meet again next Tuesday on our forum. Come, let's talk with Kassim Kayira. Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
It's one of those I didn't want to end. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.